Hey, yo, what it is and what's good, y'all? Welcome back to Twitty Plus, the social media podcast where I take the conversations off the timeline and go beyond the tweets, posts, whatever you want to call them. I'm your host, Lo Steph, and I'm back here for episode 177 of the platform. Yeah, I'm saying we cooking, we moving. Had a good last couple weeks, and yeah, man, we rolling, man. If you're new to the channel, though, I'd like you to hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, leave a comment below. Share the content with anybody that you know is interested in what we talking about. You know what I'm saying? We got shorts. We're on Instagram. You can catch us on a little bit on X, Twitter, a little bit on Facebook as well, right? But you can follow us at and you'll see it on the bottom, at 280 plus plus underscore pod on pretty much every platform there. So yeah, man, I'm happy to be back, man. Again, we here for another solo episode. And I just want to kind of react to just a couple of little things, and then we're gonna move on into all the things that we're gonna talk about in this episode, right? So one of the things that I wanted to talk about just real quick and react to is just kind of the lack of concern and care about the Fox lawsuit, right? The Fox Sports lawsuit. So obviously, the man, they've been doing their work, man. They've been doing their work in terms of keeping this stuff, I feel like, off of the airways, because like now it's been a week and a half or so since we've heard about the Joy Taylor and Skip Bayless accusations and that lawsuit. And obviously they got to go to court at some point, but it's been kind of swept under the rug. Like I'm seeing a couple, little videos here and there that's still kind of talking about it. But overall, the reception of when I put out some short form clips, the reception was like, so, you know what I mean? Like this happens all the time, whatever. And I'm thinking like, yeah, it happens all the time, but there's not lawsuits typically about it. And the thing is, yes, people in jobs fraternize with one another, right? We have bosses that have relations to people that are underneath them, right? Subordinates. Typically, how it works though is if you're in a position like that, it usually needs to be put to the forefront, right? And like HR needs to know and everything like that. So obviously these were some secret relations and relationships going on. Um, the fact is the problem is the fact that like Fox didn't do much, right? The people behind the scenes didn't do much when this lady was making some complaints. And yeah, she to tell her story, she did have to throw, and I talked about this, she did have to throw Joy under the bus a little bit so we can know. But like the part that is rare, or the part that we don't hear about, is you have a woman, right, who is friends with Joy Taylor, or friendly, like they were pretty close. They were close enough to that Joy Taylor was willing to tell this woman all her business, right? Or when this lady was observing things and pointing things out, Joy was filling her in. And it's the part where she was plotting to lie on the boss, right? That's the part where it's like, no, that does not happen every day, right? And also too, like a lot of that type of stuff gets found out, right? We discover the truth of these matters. Yeah, it's like false accusations happen, but not false accusations to where usually if it's false, it's because it never happened. Not like these false accusations where like you can't make that accusation if you at any point in time were having any type of consensual relations with your boss. Like you can't make the accusation that he forced himself onto you, and especially when you was doing it for a whole decade. And I get there's like a little bit of a power imbalance there, and like so automatically people were like, oh yeah, no, it's the boss's responsibility, like they're the ones that shouldn't be doing it. But again, that's where like the pretty privilege and stuff like that comes into play, where it's like, oh, so we're willing to, like, if this was a woman that was not that desirable, yeah, I mean, we would tear that woman to shreds. You know what I'm saying? Because she is attractive as she is, we kind of be like, well, Is it that big of a deal? And it's like, yo, y'all missing the whole point. Like she was really about to crash out and lie. And at what point, you know what I'm saying, was she gonna be, with the network for 10 years before she says something? Was she waiting to get her own like her very own show? Like I think she's a part of a lot of shows, but I don't think she necessarily has her own platform. But it is what it is, man. Y'all gonna react how y'all gonna react, but it's just it was telling as to like kind of where we at right now in society where, some whole behavior kind of gets kind of swept under the rug, and it's like it's not that big of a deal anymore because we got a society that embraces that kind of culture. So there was that. So I just thought that was interesting how like just some of the conversation that arose from that. Also too, we did talk about the Lion King. I did give my review on the Lion King. I'm just now putting clips out, like, and you might still see some clips that kind of float around there that where I'm talking about the Lion King. But it's wild because I didn't talk about this in my last episode. But like when I was like finding, like trying to find images and things like that for the Lion King, I actually came across a bad review of it from Vulture. And whatever, it's maybe that name is telling, but the way the headline was, it was like, oh, expensive CGI can't save this bland story or something like that. And I'm thinking like bland story. What? Like this story is even deeper than the original Lion King story. And so shout out to the people that commented, the audience, and how y'all been receptive because I had a lot of people that was like, "Oh, I'm gonna go watch it now, right? I'm gonna go watch this movie now that you said some good things." But then I had so many people comment saying how they seen the movie three times already. Like they already see, and I want to see it again. So the reception has been great in terms of that movie. People love it. Adults love it. Like if you like I said before, if you love The Lion King, you're gonna love Mufasa. You're gonna love this movie and everything that stands for. But it's so deep, man. Like this story it goes so deep and it is a full circle moment in this universe, so to speak. But it is wild that it's like we already got the sequel. We already got the next story. The next story is The Lion King. But it almost makes me feel like what they should have done was because Disney, they got into the habit of like, all right, we had a successful animated film. Let's throw that into like real live action and like let's see where it goes. But so the fact that they went with instead of making Lion King 2, the fact that they went with a prequel shows me that like that was a misstep. And what they should have did was if they were going to do start live action, they should have gave us Mufasa first and then they could have gave us and then the regular Lion King, what we know, would have been even better, right? And then they might have been even more conscious of picking certain voice actors because, like I said, um, as much as I do love Donald Glover, like as an actor, comedian, like his and writing and produce, like I like what he does on camera. But like again, his voice was a little bit. It just stood out too much. It was too distinct to where it's like, all right, this is Donald Glover, and then even Beyonce. I mean, like, yeah, we love Beyonce, but like most people don't think that she can act. So like, it really feels like the first Lion King because I don't think it was received that well, and a lot of people kind of agree with me in my comments. They say, yeah, the first one wasn't that great, and I think it's partly is because of these voice actors and like with voice acting you have to have somebody that you have to be a really, really good actor in general to be a good voice actor. You can't just put a celebrity's voice on there and then have everybody like buy into it. Like it still plays a major role, like what their acting ability is. And so again, like you have them two as the leads, Nala and Simba, and it didn't hit for a lot of people. So but yeah, they should have used like maybe some more unknown people or lesser known people that where we don't necessarily recognize their voices, and then we can like the movie for what it is as opposed to liking the movie because it has all this star power. So but yeah, man, go see Lion King if you haven't seen it. Go see go see Squid Game. Like watch Squid Games if you haven't watched Squid Games yet. But Squid Game. Brothers, black people, we love to add S's. We love to make stuff plural even when it's not plural. But yeah, man. So we got a good episode today, man. We're gonna talk a little bit about we're gonna talk about this TikTok ban for a second here. And because it's looming, it's supposed to be coming. It's supposed to be coming real soon in the next couple of days, but we'll see if it actually happens. So we're gonna talk about that. We're gonna talk about a little bit of a scandal that's kind of going on with Spotify. Something that happened a couple months ago. We're gonna brush up on, but like I seen a video recently that made me like think like, oh yeah, we got to talk about this because I did talk to an artist about Spotify and how there is like this movement where they are trying to get rid of like independent artists. You know what I'm saying? They're trying to get everybody signed to labels so they could basically like control the cash flow. But Spotify is doing something else with music as it pertains to AI that is not good for. It's not just not good for independent artists. It's not good for any artist, right? So we're gonna talk about that. And then we're going to talk about the FDA, man. They finally banned red dye was it red dye 40 or red dye number 3? Yeah, I think, yeah, they banned red dye number 3, I believe. And we're going to talk a little bit about that and just like what does it mean to be FDA approved anymore? You know what I mean? And how much weight does that even hold? And then we're going to end this with recap of the wild card playoffs, but also preview of the divisional round playoffs as we move on to the second round of the greatest playoff spectacle in the world, which is the NFL playoffs, right? So let's get started, man. Let's get started. All right. So here we go. So we got a TikTok ban coming, supposedly, right? So yeah, that's where we'll start. We'll start with the TikTok ban. All right, so is the TikTok ban coming? So this has been in the works for about 2 years. If you remember in my a couple episodes ago when I had my guest Adrian Rose, I talk about how, when I had him on in so it was 2024. I had him on in 2022. I had him on in 2022 and that it was 2 years to almost pretty much to the date of when I had him on the platform. And then we were gearing up for the government and politicians starting to talk about this TikTok ban and it didn't really go anywhere then, but now we're at this point where it's supposed to be coming, right? Like it's there's a deadline. So the TikTok ban is supposed to happen Sunday, January 19th, which to me that's a wild day to do a ban for something like on a Sunday. It almost feels like they picked that date because it's not gonna happen, right? So we're gonna talk about that. Um, but supposedly you won't be able to access it on your phone. Like if you already have it downloaded, you won't be able to access it. And then if you think that the app is like malfunctioning and not working, you won't be able to update it. Like I pose supposedly it's not even supposed to show up in the Apple Store, the Play Store, any of that type of stuff. It's not supposed to show up, so you don't have access to it. Now, my thing is, I just think it's interesting how people are upset that it could disappear. And I say could disappear. And I'm going to use air quotes for could disappear. Like, and what I want to know is why. Like, why are you upset? Like, I mean, like, for real, give me a legitimate reason why you're upset, right? So I can understand why influencers are upset by the ban, right? Especially like if you have grown your platform to where you are making money on TikTok, and if TikTok is really the only place that you post content or you like posting content, then yeah, I mean I could see that posing a problem. So like there people that are actually content creators, I can see why they're frustrated, right, with it. Um, I don't understand or care about the consumers though, for like when it comes to TikTok, right? That say especially the ones that talk about like how TikTok is their source of entertainment or their source of information, when in all actuality there are better platforms and more superior platforms to give you entertainment and information. And if we're talking about social media, right? Obviously, like we have Instagram, we have Facebook, and I know those are like antiquated things, but Um, I would say that I like posting on Instagram a little bit better. I feel like it just I find it kind of gears stuff away from a certain audience, and when I say a certain audience, I really am talking about the youth, right? TikTok when it first kind of got popular, like we looked at it as the kids app, and like yes, that's where the kids live. That's where they go. That's the first app that they log into. Like many older people the first thing that they log into is Facebook, right? Then you got, the people that like to talk and are savvy. I mean, they like to, be on X or Twitter. And then, you got a lot of people that like to be on Instagram. Like the people that are like the more influencer type people, they like to be on Instagram. Like that's where they post their stuff. And Instagram and Facebook, they're part of Meta and they kind of interweave, but they're definitely different. Like Instagram and Facebook are totally different in many ways. But I feel like, uh, I know Mark Zuckerberg has come out and he's like, he's kind of scaled back some restrictions, whatever. But I just think that like they do things a little bit differently. So like when it comes to entertainment, my issue with TikTok has always been when I've put my platform on TikTok. I can't tell you how many times where I posted a video and my stuff was muted. Like it was muted because and it was talking about my language and stuff like that. So it's weird that how like TikTok they won't allow you to cuss or they won't allow you to talk about certain things, but like if you're ever on TikTok or people send you TikTok videos, I see stuff that's like was always way worse than anything that I've ever talked about, right? And they're freely able to talk about it. My problem though with TikTok is just the fact that when people talk about information, the thing is with TikTok and what's different between Meta and like YouTube or something like that. Those other platforms, Meta, which is Facebook and Instagram, and then YouTube which is separate as Google, they vet information in a slightly different way. So like TikTok will push your stuff like so yeah, it could be clean, so to speak. You're not cussing or you're not saying certain words, but TikTok will push you. Like it gets pushed out pretty rapidly based on location, based on certain things like that. And it gets you get a lot of push on it. But they also allow people to push like bad information. Like as much as people are talking about like they love it for oh, this is where I get all my news. That's the dumbest thing that you could ever say. Right? I don't get my news from Instagram or Facebook or YouTube. I don't get my news from them. I get it from I mean, because there's a lot of content creators that are talking about different things that are happening, but I go to the source. I go to the source. If I want information. And in terms of entertainment, for the most part, I am allowed to say whatever I want on YouTube and Instagram and Facebook. For the most part, I'm allowed to say whatever I want. Now I might not get the same kind of push, but I'm not censored. So like I said, I've been on TikTok, I've posted stuff on TikTok, and I've always been censored on TikTok. And I just never understood. I was like, well, what's the disconnect? Like why is this offensive? Why can't I talk about that type of stuff? So I have a personal kind of like I don't give a fuck. Like if they if they actually ban it, like I don't care. You know what I'm saying? Um, for somebody that doesn't use TikTok, then in my head I'm thinking, well, yeah, then more people are gonna come to Instagram, they're gonna come to YouTube, and like so, it doesn't hurt me. So since I already wasn't posting on TikTok, the TikTok ban doesn't harm me at all. Um, if anything, it helps the other platforms that I put my content on. It helps that stuff grow. But some people, like I said, some people don't see it that way. Um, I just and just other thing, I just never liked like the interface and when you post stuff and like even the songs that they had. Like if you want to put music on your post, like the songs that are available on TikTok, I didn't like that as much as I enjoyed the selection and what you can access via Instagram. So I know Instagram was always directly tied to Spotify. I don't know what TikTok is, but like, I know a lot of songs get popularized and I know a lot of people use TikTok for a lot of different reasons. But like when you're saying as if you're an adult person and you're saying like, "Oh my God, I can't watch my TikToks." at night anymore. That's what I do. I just scroll and watch whatever. Well, you could do that same stuff on YouTube. Now, YouTube has shorts. YouTube has long form video. I actually prefer platforms that want to promote and push long form video. I rather y'all. I do post short form content, but that's because that's is a promotional tool to get people to watch the full episode, so to speak, or the longer form content. And if even if they don't, then I have an audience for that type of stuff. But I would prefer like if we could, because I make a podcast, so I prefer if it was long form content that gets pushed. So and I think TikTok has just done a lot to like we already watch a lot of short stuff, whatever, but it's just like the attention span things when we come when we talk about it, and again how it affects the youth and how like and even like you could go viral but going viral on TikTok is not the same as going viral on these other platforms because in many ways it's easier. I've seen young people go viral for just taking like a random picture or like a weird smile or something like that. 50,000 likes and and 100,000 views, and I'm thinking like, what did they do? Like so there are probably some people talented people on TikTok, but there's a lot of people that get it's saturated. Like TikTok is the most saturated platform, I think, and people get recognition and views for nothing a lot of times. So I don't care. Um, However, right, will it happen Sunday, January 19th? I don't think for whatever reason, I don't think it's gonna happen. Right now in the headlines, you have people advocating for it to get the ban to get put. I seen one advocacy group that talked about getting the ban pushed for 270 days. I'm thinking like 270 days. So basically almost the rest of the year. You know what I'm saying? Because what that's 9 months out of the year. So in 9 months you want to ban it after you talk about banning it. What's that gonna do? Then I've seen something where there's like there's legislation talking about postponing the ban for another 3 to 6 months. So I don't know. I kind of want to see it get banned just to see the reaction and how people are going to function. Because here's the thing: is TikTok ain't gonna be here, but we're gonna hear about how people feel about TikTok not being here. So again, it's just gonna feed the other platforms. But I kind of want to see it banned simply because I want to see the reaction to it, right? I think there's certain politicians might want it to be in place because, again, I think the spread of misinformation is prevalent and heavy on a platform like TikTok. And of course, if you're trying to fool people or trying to convince them of something, then bad information is still good information to you. You know what I mean? Especially if the bad information or misinformation benefits you in some type of way. So we'll see. We'll see if we actually if we stand on business. I have a feeling that it's not going to go through. I have a feeling, but I think Sunday's going to roll around and nothing's going to happen. I obviously people are going to be worried about the NFL playoffs and things like that, and then some people are going to be worried about the following day because we know January 20th is inauguration day. It is ironically also Martin Luther King Day, and I swear to God, I swear when Trump was inaugurated the first time, it fell on Martin Luther King Day as well. So I'm not really feeling that. So you got to get people that's a little bit more concerned with that anyway. But for whatever reason, even Mr. Beast just went to try to negotiate to buy it. There's other billionaires that's trying to negotiate to buy it. They want Elon Musk to buy it. I just don't think it's gonna happen with all this push and all this fanfare. I don't think it happens. So we'll see. We'll see if they stand on business and what they said, but I don't see it coming. But let's move on to the next topic. Oh, hold on one second. 1 second here. All right, moving on to the next topic. So what we're going to talk about now is a little bit about a scandal or scam that's kind of happening on Spotify. And again, what we're going to talk about, part of what we're going to talk about happened already a while ago, and I think it's one of those things that came and went and like maybe not a lot of people was paying attention to, but when I seen this video, it made me, and I started trying to like search for stuff that's related to this. It brought up that old lawsuit that happened in September, but like this is what's happening right now on Spotify. So I'm gonna share the screen for a second here, and we're gonna talk about it. Let's see. Oh, let me. I'm playing around here. Here we go. We got it. We got what we want. Okay, here we go. All right, and I'm gonna optimize this. It'll take our little take our little screen out of there. Yep. Okay. All right. So the Spotify scandal has actually gotten worse. The Spotify scandal has actually gotten worse. So let's hear what this content creator has to say, and then we're gonna dig into it a little bit. All right, let's watch it.
Somehow, the Spotify scandal has gotten even worse. Not only have they admitted to distributors to artificially making more space in the algorithm for major label artists, therefore pushing more and more small independent artists out. Recently, in a Consequence of Sound article, they interviewed a former Spotify employee who has confirmed the rumors. Even major label artists are being displaced in their editorial playlists because now they are filling them full of ghost artists. Ghost artists are fake musicians with fake bios whose music is completely owned by Spotify itself. Apparently, one of the reasons why Spotify fired so many of their music curators is because those curators had a really big problem with them doing this. In the interview, the former Spotify employee talks about how they were regularly reminded that they needed to be filling their playlists with mostly in-house ghost artists to save money. At first, this was mostly happening with lo-fi hip-hop, easy jazz, and instrumental music. Because most people who listen to easy listening study playlists aren't really focused on who the artist is. They just want chill music that they can get into the zone to. But they're not going to notice if it's a fake artist that they're listening to. The former Spotify employee speculated that now, with how advanced AI music production is, that they're going to be doing this with a lot of playlists in all genres. So that tiny little sliver of space that was left in their algorithm for independent artists like my band is now basically gone. I haven't put one of my band's songs on an editorial playlist in years. Even our streams by the algorithmic playlist have dropped by nearly 1,000%. So now you may be asking, if Spotify keeps screwing us, how come we keep putting our music there? Well, that's because 90% of our fans exclusively stream their music through Spotify. We really don't have a choice. Music gets streamed 2.5 million times every year on Spotify, next to like 300,000 on Apple and 100,000 on Amazon. And sadly, I don't think most of those listeners would switch platforms just for us. Spotify is still too convenient. Somehow the
So it's funny because a lot of people look at, people that with Apple devices and stuff like that. They look at Apple Music as superior, but like Spotify is the biggest streaming platform in the world, right? And the thing is though, if it's happening at Spotify, it's happening on other platforms as well. So it's not just an attack on Spotify, but this is talking about all the different streaming platforms, the DSPs, and how they're trying to control the space, whatever. So the reason why, so what he's talking about here is he is talking about something that I discussed in a couple episodes ago, where Spotify is basically, yeah, they're trying to get all these um they're buying up all these independent labels, right? And so like they're not independent anymore, or these major labels are buying up the independent labels, giving people deals and stuff like that. So it's like they're major artists, right? Because they don't want the little guy to blow up. They want ownership. They want, if you are making music and you blow up, the big music industry wants a piece of that. They want a cut of that, right? So not only is that happening, but then what they're doing is they're putting fake artists on there. They're putting, when they say ghost artists, they're just putting artists that don't exist. They're AI. It's AI artists. It's AI music that's not only being it's being pushed. It's being pushed, and that's what we're hearing. So when he talked about editorial playlists, so if you ever been on Spotify, and then they have these playlists that are made by Spotify, that would be an editorial playlist. So like Rap Caviar, Signed XO, there's one called R&B, there's one called Get Turned, right? Obviously these are genres that I listen to, so um I'm familiar with it a little bit, but it's a big deal. Like if you're a rapper and you make it on the Rap Caviar playlist, like you're guaranteed, you're guaranteed to probably make money off your song because it's gonna stream well. Like and when you talk about the Rap Caviar playlist, I think they put about like 40 songs on that playlist and it changes a little bit every week. It's almost like it's not really a countdown, but it almost is. Like they try to put the hottest thing or what they think is gonna be the hottest thing at the very top. And then like as songs get older, they start to phase certain songs out. They swap certain songs out. As songs get hot, like maybe there's an album and then like a song kind of starts to take off, they put it on there. So it's a big deal for smaller artists to get on these playlists, right? Because then it's almost signifies that you made it, so to speak. Well, the thing is that he's saying that they're not even putting independent artists on these playlists anymore. And what's happening is they're putting these these AI generated artists and this AI generated music on there, right? The problem with this is that it's like, okay, well, one, it's like, all right, that sounds crazy. Well, the reason why they're doing it is because they if they put more AI artists on, right, that means that they're paying less actual people, right? So this is about money. This always about money. That's why they're buying up all this stuff, right? So they can get a bigger cut, but also they're tired of paying the artists that they're not promoting. So they want to pay people less. They want to make more money off of music, right? Because it's all profit. If they can make some type of AI artist and them songs go off, then that's all profit. It's 100% profit. 100% profit for them. As opposed to, I mean, there's a negotiation, there's like an exchange happening when it's an actual artist. So like they are eliminating that. But this is where it's ironic, right? This is where it's ironic. So in September, there was a lawsuit, and there was a man named Michael Smith, and he was charged with streaming fraud, right? Because he figured out a way to scam Spotify out of $10 million in royalties and payouts, right? So what this man was doing was he was making AI generated music, right? And then he was putting it out and he was making these fake artist pages. And so he wasn't like what it didn't draw red flags right away because he wasn't like making one artist or making music and then like putting it all under one artist's name and like you see like some random person have a billion views. No, he was making multiple accounts. So he bought a lot of different email addresses and domains so he can like create these artists, right? And then he was using AI to make the music. So he wasn't in the studio making all this music. It was, he figured out tools to do that, and then he used a VPN, uh, and basically it's like a private network that internet network that you can kind of put up there, and you use a VPN so people can't detect where things are coming from. So use a VPN as a source, for these uploads, and so nobody detected it and it took a while because he was doing this starting in like 2017. So he's doing it for years, right? And then he made over $10 million off of it, and he got charged with fraud. He got charged with fraud in this case. Now, in terms of like what the verdict is, I don't think we have a verdict at this point, or at least to my research, we don't have a verdict. But that's the irony of it. It's like, oh, okay, we're gonna stop, and the reason why is because like, yo, it's AI music, it's fake music, like we can't do that, whatever. So it's like, oh, because this guy figured out a way to scam y'all because y'all, people don't like the payouts on these streaming platforms. So it's not okay for him to make $10 million, but y'all can put AI music on the platform, and so y'all can make $10 million of straight profit, right? So that's where it's like kind of wild, and you got these executives and these people from Spotify that are like they're having to admit this. They're having to admit that they put AI music on these platforms and on these playlists. And the thing is, they said the curators, that's why they even fire curators. So the curators are the people that kind of find the music, and they're the ones that like are saying like, oh, this deserves to be on Rap Caviar. And the thing is, I always feel like I talk about it a lot. the reason why it's hard to listen to music is because music curation has died. Now, music curation and gatekeeping, there's a thin line. There's a thin line between a curator and a gatekeeper because in some ways, right, if the curator doesn't have a relationship with the artist in some way, shape, or form, or maybe they're not receiving payola or something like that, then it feels like the artist that gets denied, they feel like they're being gate kept by this one person that's determining what's hot as opposed to what's organically hot. Um, but at the same time, music curation is that's what we had when we had music videos and we had countdown shows and things like that, and or even like the video uh music video channels. Like, there's people behind the scenes that's determining what the jam of the week is. There's people behind the scenes that's determining like how often we should play this certain video or this song, and that's music curation in many ways. And so the quality felt a lot better about in music. The quality always felt better because you had people that was like studying the music, listening to music. A&Rs are big. I mean, A&R, most A&Rs could probably be music curators, right? And they probably use A&Rs to be music curators. And so the quality of music was always like higher, and like you had talent to make it. Now again, you don't have to have as much talent, and anybody can blow any given day. Now Spotify, seems like what they're trying to do is almost limit that, or if you do blow up, they want a piece. They want, and so they're gonna, they're gonna try to sign you, and then you're gonna feel like, oh man, I made it, only to not really reap the benefits of your music and what it's probably worth. And the thing is, and again, until they decide to increase the payouts on streaming, or until they bring back like physical copies in mass, right? Because you have artists that are doing it, but until they bring it back to the masses, we're not gonna see smaller artists like blow up and like make it for their talent like we used to, right? So, what do you think about what's going on? Do you think it's right that Spotify can literally make AI music and put it out, but like a person can't necessarily do it the same way? Now, I did read another article I talked about how like no, Spotify is openly saying like no, AI is okay. Like we're gonna allow AI, and it's because when it comes to music production, there's a lot of things that fall under the umbrella AI. Like auto tune is technically AI, and there's other tools. What they want to avoid is they want to avoid you using someone else's likeness to make a song. So for example, you make a song, you put out a song and it's supposed to be Drake, but it's not really Drake, but it sounds like Drake, and maybe the same cadence, but it's all made in AI. They want to eliminate that type of stuff. But at the same time, you can use AI in your own music production, but you can't just it almost has to be some type of production there. It can't just be straight AI because like I said, this guy, he figured out a back door into making money, and once he made $10 million, they said, nah, dog, like one, we need our bread back, but also two, we're not gonna allow that. And if anything, they probably hired, I mean, behind the scenes, they probably hired this guy to make all this ghost music for them. So we'll see, man, how that plays out, and as that develops, we'll talk about that a little bit more as we go on. So let's. But what do you think? What do you think? Leave a comment below. Share the content if you know anybody that's a musical artist and they're kind of like worried about things. Just let them know, man, what's on the horizon, what's already out there. They're not even competing against just people that are going viral. They're not just competing against popularity. They're not competing against major labels. They're competing against computers and AI, and trying to break through the mold, even though it's kind of hard to do that though. So let me know what you think. Let me know what you think. All right, let's move on to the next topic because I can't wait to get to this football stuff. But let's see. I got a missed call here. Hold on. I'm gonna bring up my article because I was reading it straight from here. Okay, so yes. So this just in, the FDA has banned red number 30. So red dye number 3. Red dye number 3. The FDA has banned red dye number 3, which is artificial coloring used in beverages, candy, and other foods. And basically it says evidence shows that the synthetic dye can cause cancer in lab animals. And it says here, I'm just going to read a little bit of this. Says the Food and Drug Administration said Wednesday it's banning the use of red number 3, a synthetic dye that gives food and drinks their bright red cherry color, but has been linked to cancer in animals. Says the dye is still used in thousands of foods, including candies, cereals, cherries, and fruit cocktails, and strawberry flavored milkshakes, according to the Center for Science in the Public Interest, a food safety advocacy group that petitioned the agency in 2022 to end its use. More than 9,200 food items contain the dye, including hundreds of products made by large food companies, CSPI said, citing the Agriculture Department data. The FDA is not prohibiting other artificial dyes, including red number 40, which has been linked to behavioral issues in children. So yeah, they're getting rid of red dye number 3, but red dye number 40, which is, linked to all type of behavioral problems for kids, probably it's probably causing might be causing autism, might be causing ADHD, might be causing all type of stuff, ODD, but they're not there yet. They're not there yet. So let's keep going. It says the FDA's decision is a victory for consumer advocacy groups, and some U.S. lawmakers have long urged the FDA to revoke Red Number Three's approval, citing ample evidence that its use in beverages, dietary supplements, cereals, and candies may cause cancer as well as affect children's behavior. And here's a quote. It says, "At long last, the FDA is ending the regulatory paradox of Red 3 being illegal for use in lipstick, but perfectly legal to feed children in the form of candy," said Dr. Peter Lowry, president of the CSPI. The agency banned the additive in cosmetics in 1990 under the Delaney Clause, a federal law that requires the FDA to ban food additives that are found to cause or induce cancer in humans or animals. Food manufacturers have until January 15th of 2027 to reformulate their products. Companies that make ingested drugs, such as dietary supplements, will get an additional year. It says the FDA cannot authorize a food additive or color additive if it has been found to cause cancer in humans or animals. And that is Jim Jones, ironically. The FDA's deputy director of human food said in a statement, evidence shows cancer in laboratory male rats exposed to high levels of red dye number 3. All right. So, do y'all want to know what red dye number 3 is? It is it's used in foods. It was created in 1907 and it's made from petroleum. So it's made from oil. Um, this is wild. So we won't get into more of the fact of the details, so to speak. But to me, it's a good thing. It's a good thing that's happening that they're banning some things. Um, it's just crazy that right 1990. So it's been banned for 35 years in the use of cosmetics, right? Like lipstick. So we determined though, but the irony is that we determined that it was safe to put on, it wasn't safe to put on our skin, but for 3 decades, it was still okay to eat. It was still okay to eat. We can't put it on our skin. Like it's bad for your lips and whatever else, right? Probably all type of rouges and stuff like that. It's bad for that. It's bad to put on your body. But for 35 years, we said like, no, it's okay. You can still eat that though. That ain't crazy. That ain't crazy. So like it just feels like what it feels like is in this whole conversation is the fact that the FDA is not the stamp of approval it once was, right? It's not. So like if something is FDA approved, like it's like who cares, right? When we look at our products here in America and then like what's been happening, so this is the power of social media is that we get information quicker and we get more insightful behind the scenes information about things that we didn't always know, or that we didn't necessarily care to look up. It's just sometimes it just bombards us and hits us. But it's the fact that like other countries who sell our products, like Heinz ketchup, for example. Heinz ketchup in Canada ain't the same as Heinz ketchup here in the United States, and like they put they might put like ingredients as opposed to like 40 different ingredients. So it's like, but it's like it's probably FDA approved, like it's safe to eat. However, there's other countries that have determined like, no, this is bad to eat, and that's where it's just wow, because that's just so American of us, right? It's so America and so American of us to be like, well, nah. I mean, we don't care what them other countries are doing. Yeah, I mean, we're gonna do it our way, and so we're gonna kill our own people. We're gonna harm our own people. We're gonna harm our children for decades and decades, and until the noise gets loud enough, and then we'll say, okay, 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 we can ban it. So yeah, not a stamp of approval anymore, like the FDA. So somebody is trying to make something and it'd be like, well, is it FDA approved? Or a drug comes out, is it FDA approved? Does that even mean anything anymore? People, the vaccines that people did not like when it came to COVID, so certain, COVID-19, the pandemic, they were talking about how, um, they were talking about how it's FDA approved, but it's like, does that even hold any weight anymore? You got politicians, who now he's supposed to be, was it, RFK, his position in the cabinet, right? He's talking big stuff. He's talking big stuff about revamping things. So maybe there are more harmful bans that will come into play in this next administration. I hope for it, I hope it does change the fast food industry. I'm not gonna say that I don't eat fast food. I do eat fast food, but like I wouldn't mind if I definitely would not object if they are taking bad things out of stuff, right? And I wouldn't say making fast food healthier, but at the same time making it less, let's make it less toxic. You know what I mean? So like if I do want to indulge, I still feel like my well-being, my overall well-being is still intact as opposed to just kind of winging it out here. You know what I mean? So we'll see. We'll see what else comes about. But like I'm wondering like why can't they ban red dye 40? Is there too many foods in which red dye 40 where it exists? But like I said, this is a baby step, but it's good. Finally, they are banning some things that aren't good. But again, I think if we looked at the ingredient, if we compare, like I think that's where we should start. I think we should start at the products that we sell internationally, right? And then compare. So compare Pepsi here to Pepsi that we sell overseas. Compare, even across the border. Compare chocolate. Compare whatever it is when it comes to food items. Let's compare. Let's start there, right? And anything that has like you know only a handful of ingredients that we sell in another country, right? That and it doesn't have a bunch of ingredients that of things that we cannot pronounce. Like I think we should start to adopt those things. Now, it might be, some people might say, "Oh, this sucks. Oh, this new Pepsi sucks or this new whatever sucks." Well, yeah, I mean, maybe it'll curb us away from that type of stuff, which again, the FDA, because we're such a capitalistic economy and country, like the FDA, the government don't want to be responsible for taking food out of somebody else's mouth, so to speak, or money out of somebody's pockets. But man, if it means that we're gonna be safer, if it means that we're gonna be healthier as a country, because we are very unhealthy as a country, I'm all for it. I'm all for it. So we'll see what happens. And again, with this new administration and new people in certain positions, yeah, I mean, we're gonna put, I want them to put their money where their mouth is. You know what I'm saying? Like stand on business and help out and improve things like you said you would, as opposed to just, like again, like being status quo. Right. All right. What do you think? What do you think? What do you think? What do you think about those first couple topics? Talk about a couple bans and scandals and things like that. But now we're gonna get into the nitty gritty. Nitty gritty. So that's what I came here for. So we're gonna talk about the wild card playoff round, and then we're gonna preview the divisional round playoffs, right? So I'm gonna go in reverse chronological order, and we're gonna start with the Vikings Rams game because that was the Monday night game. That was the last wild card game, and this is what I said: the Vikings, man. I make sure we're. I'm just making sure we're okay. The Vikings, man. The Vikings had. Oh snap! Sorry for hiccup. The Vikings, y'all had one job, and that job was to be a very mid Rams team that is overall they're ranked 20th in offensive scoring, right? They rank 17th in points allowed. So their offense is bottom third, right? And then their defense in terms of points allowed is a middle row team, right? And not to mention they had a negative point differential. So like when you talk about like how many points they score versus points against, people score more points against them than they actually score. So they have a negative point differential. And this is a team that made the playoffs. This is a team that won a very subpar, weak division in the NFC West, which the NFC West started hot. And then, like, actually, we had high hopes for it because the 49ers, we expect the 49ers to kind of get back. I don't think we expected the Rams to be anything. The Cardinals, because they got Marvin Harrison Jr., we thought they were going to be really good. They weren't. And then the Seahawks started strong. They started real good under their new coach, and then only to kind of like drop a bunch of games at the end of the season and kind of fall off or whatever. So the Vikings, they had to be a mediocre playoff team, right? You're a 14 win team versus this 10-win team, right? And they couldn't get it done. The Vikings, on the other hand, they are a top 10 scoring offense, ranked ninth, right? And then top five, ranked fifth and their fifth best in terms of points allowed. So they have a really good offense and a really strong defense, and then a strong secondary I think they produced the most takeaways in the NFL, and they got a slew of pass rushers. So it's like their defense is stacked. This defense is good, and they got an amazing defensive coordinator to where like people apparently all year they were struggling on what Brian Flores was doing as a coordinator. They couldn't even identify the coverages that he was in, right? This marks the second time in 3 years that the Vikings finished with 13 plus wins, only to lose in the first round of the playoffs, right? So yeah, Kevin O'Connell, he's a good coach. He's a good coach. He's a solid. It kind of annoys me a little bit, when we think about the NFC North. I'm a Packers fan, but the Vikings have a really good coach. The Lions have an even better coach, right? Bears, again, they don't scare us, but it's like these are teams that are going to be around. However, Kevin O'Connell can't keep producing strong regular season football teams only to lose right away in the playoffs, right? That's not good. So the narratives are going to start getting louder. And if you can't win playoff games with these amazing rosters and regular season records, yeah, man, he might have to be a coordinator somewhere. That game though was a mess, man. The final score was 27-9, 9 points the Vikings scored. So they got one offensive touchdown. They tried to go for a 2-point conversion. They didn't get it. They didn't score that touchdown till late. Like the game was like a three-score game in the second quarter. It was like 21-3 for the longest. Um, the Vikings gave up 9 sacks, right? So the Rams, they don't even have a premier pass rusher anymore. Kobe Turner, I think he might have led their team. Like he had 8 sacks, and he's one of the guys that got a couple sacks in that game. And but yeah, they gave up 9 sacks. So all this talk about Sam Darnold and the magic behind him, and like the question of whether, oh, should they keep Sam Darnold and then trade JJ McCarthy? Because we don't know what we get at. We don't know what we're getting at JJ McCarthy. We have no idea, right? So why not just trade him and we'll get good capital for it, and then we're gonna pay Sam Darnold. Well, I think that loss puts all that into jeopardy, right? And I don't think we're gonna see Sam Darnold coming back. Sam Darnold might he's gonna go to a team that's desperate for quarterback, or maybe a team that is like desperate to bring in competition. If I think about teams desperate for a quarterback, maybe the Titans go out and get him. Maybe who else needs a quarterback right now? Maybe the Jets. Maybe he returns to the Jets because like Aaron Rodgers leaves, he returns to the Jets. Like that'll be wild. Not gonna go to New England because they got the guy Drake May. They're gonna still try to see what they can get out of Drake May. Maybe he goes to the Saints, right? Because their cars probably is his time there is done. The Colts need a quarterback. I mean, I would say the Jaguars need a quarterback, but like they just paid Trevor Lawrence, so they're gonna have to like sit in that a little bit longer. Yeah. I mean the Packers, I mean not the Packers, the Cowboys not gonna give up their quarterback. So yeah, I don't see that. The Bears not gonna give up their quarterback either. So there are a couple teams out there. Shoot, maybe he goes back to San Francisco. Who knows? The Raiders need a quarterback. Who knows though? We'll see. We'll see how this all plays out. But yeah, man, I think that Darnold magic is fizzled out. And I never root for the Vikings. I'm a Packers fan. I never root for the Vikings. And the one time that I am rooting for them remotely, they just blew it. And I watched most of that game, and they just they didn't even have any urgency in the second half. So they deserved to lose that game. And shout out to the Rams, man, for shocking everybody. They are a hot team. The Rams are a hot team. We'll talk about the Rams a little bit more when we preview their matchup against the Eagles. But disappointing, disappointing, disappointing. And making the division look bad, right? So like now we only got of our double digit win teams, we only got one of those teams now left in the playoffs after we put in three. We only got one, right? All right. Let's move on to the next game. Again, chronological order, reverse chronological order. Buccaneers versus Commanders. So that was a good game, man. That was the most competitive of all the playoff games in the wild card weekend, right? So the Commanders, they get their first playoff win since the 2005 season. That is crazy. And then they win in dramatic fashion. They win on a last second field goal that was a doink, right? Zane Gonzalez knocks it in 37 yards, but he did hit one of the goalposts, but it still sputtered in. It's funny because I caught the tail end of that game, and I just clicked on my Roku TV, and I clicked on it because it was just right there. And it was the Spanish broadcast, and I was watching the Spanish broadcast of the end of that game, and it was hella entertaining. Like they got mad energy, and the fact that they got their own commentators, and it's like most of the stuff I understand what they're saying because I understand football and what commentators probably saying, but like not being able to like decipher every single word except for when they said players' names. So I thought that was funny. Um, the Buccaneers, they couldn't keep their streak of 6 games of not allowing a second half touchdown. So Buccaneers defense, as in the last couple weeks, they kind of became a little bit more stout and they were stopping teams. The Buccaneers overall, though, they were a very, very, very up and down and inconsistent team all season. A lot of their issues has to do with time management. So that's one of Todd Bowles. That's one of his biggest. That's one of the biggest criticisms that he gets, and I've seen it a couple times in games. Um, it was early in the season. I remember they were playing the Cardinals early in the season, and the Cardinals ended up winning that game, but like he really botched the time management of that whole game, and it was like it was sad and it was crazy because it was like, bro, like what are you doing? So like, he's gonna need some type of like somebody to kind of step in and help him out with that. Let's see. Yeah, but the Commanders, the reason why they won that game is and how they've been winning a lot of games is being efficient on third down, but also their ability to win close games. I believe the Commanders won eight of their wins have come on like one score wins, right? They won on a Hail Mary. They beat the Eagles at the end of the game a couple weeks ago. I mean, they just beat the Buccaneers on the last second field goal, and I just think it's cool because um, you got Jaden Daniels, man. Jaden Daniels probably gonna be the rookie of the year if they don't give it to Brock Bowers because he set a record. But like Jaden Daniels, man, that's my guy, man. LSU, I love my LSU players, and he's a little bit older of a quarterback for a rookie. Like I think he's like a 23-year old. He'll be like 24 soon. Year old rookie, but maybe that little bit of experience or that time that he's had in college that really lent to him to being a more polished player. And they're really doing this with not a lot of weapons. Like, they have Terry McLaurin, but outside of Terry McLaurin, they don't really have weapons like that. I mean, they got Brian Robinson. Brian Robinson is good. They're running back. They got Austin Eckler who kind of, makes some plays here and there. And I think they have Ertz. They have Ertz, but that's an old tight end. They got an old running back. They got a young running back, and a receiver that's like in the middle of his prime. Like Terry McLaurin is not young anymore. He might be like 29 years old, 28, 29 years old. But somebody that's like had a fine, he had a career year this year, and always a consistent receiver. But like really leading his team. So it's interesting to see. They will be playing the Lions, and we'll get into that preview in a second. But really good win for the Commanders. All right, now we have the Packers and Eagles game, and I'm not gonna spend too much time on that, but like, because I'm disappointed that the Packers lost. I'm disappointed in the way we ended the season. So the Packers definitely limped into the playoffs. I talked about that in the last episode. I said that we were limping into the playoffs. If we would have beaten the Vikings and then we would have definitely been had more urgency to beat the Bears, then we would have locked up the sixth seed, and I think we would have definitely and really if we beat the Vikings, we might even push for the five seed. But anyway, I think we can we would have beat the Commanders, we would have beat the Rams, right? We struggled against like four teams this year. I mean, well, we struggled against three teams this year. We lost twice now to the Eagles. We lost twice to the Lions and lost twice to the Vikings. We did lose one to the Bears, but we every other team that we played this year we beat. I mean, an 11-win team with one division win is crazy, and I said that in last episode. But my question is, right, to talk about this Packers Eagles game, what does it mean to have possession in the NFL? So that game was off from the very beginning. The opening kickoff, Keyshawn Nixon fumbles, right? He gets blasted and he fumbles. There's a lot of people that argue that it was a helmet to helmet hit. I don't even care about the helmet to helmet. I don't even care about a penalty because a penalty would have negated the fumble, but at the same time, Keyshawn Nixon recovered the fumble. So my thing is like when it comes to playoff football, I always wonder like you would think the NFL and the refs they have access to way more than what the broadcast has access to, but like that might not even be true. And there was an aerial view that showed that after Keyshawn Nixon fumbles, he literally grabbed the ball back, right? And then you know how there's always a pile and everything like that, and everybody's like going crazy. So on the field, they said that the Eagles recovered it. Well, in the replay, they showed Keyshawn Nixon. I mean, he fumbled it, but then he tucked it back. And then he's there on the ground with it like this. And then, obviously there's somebody that yanks it out. But they've always said like if you can establish possession in the replay, then that's who the ball goes to. Possession was established. There's not a point in the video that we see in the broadcast. There's not a point that we see an Eagle actually possess the ball. They just went off of the fact that he came out of the pile, and it's like that's not enough. That's not enough. So already had a bad taste in my mouth. Eagles marched down to score that first touchdown. They only had like 20 some yards to go. The Packers defense played really well. They stepped up. Packers offense though sputtered, and Jordan Love made way too many mistakes in this game. Way too many mistakes, and it was ugly out there, man. He was throwing picks. The first pick that he threw to Slay. it looked like a good ball, and it was just I think it was just a better play by Slay. The one where he threw an interception to Zach Bond, that was crazy because it was like, yo, bro, you kind of missed your target, but also like, where are you going with that ball? Like we had a chance to like cut the lead down, and it was crazy to do that right before halftime. Um, I feel like also too obviously we know in that game people were dropping like flies in that game. The Packers they lost their starting star guard. They lost Jaden Reed. They lost Romeo Dobbs, which is another key wide receiver. And then Josh Jacobs got hurt a little bit in that game. It was crazy. Like people were just dropping like flies. A lot of people was getting Quay Walker had got hurt. Like it was too many. So it was too much for the Packers to overcome. And if people were really hurt, they would have been depleted if they would have got to the other round. So like, the Eagles on the other hand, they did enough to win. They didn't play particularly well. Jalen Hurts didn't play particularly well. He didn't have any interceptions. He had two touchdowns, but like he didn't have that many yards. Saquon Barkley was, for the most part, he was contained. And it's like I said, the Packers defense, despite not having their number one corner and missing other guys on the defensive end, they still were able to kind of compete and they had a chance. So like even though that fumble put a bad taste in my mouth, they still had a chance to win. And so there's you can't make too many excuses. The Packers were not ready for that game. That's all I say. And I'd say like there's a lot of things. Maybe we could talk about the improvement of them in the future, but they definitely have a ways to go. But I think the future is still bright. I think they have a good foundation, and they established that with their defense. Because I love that our defense is better, and we just gotta make a couple moves in off season to kind of solidify us. All right, then we got the Bills and Broncos game. Man, the Bills, they continue to cruise on teams, man. The Broncos, though, they came out and tried to make it competitive. They came out with an opening drive score, but then they didn't really sniff any points after that. So that was like a 31-7 victory. Josh Allen didn't have to do too much in that win. It was the James Cook show, and James Cook had, well over 100 yards and multiple touchdowns. And so he went to work, man. So like um I think the Broncos, I think they have a bright future. It's good that they feel like they got their quarterback. They got their coach, but I think that they still have a ways to go in terms of improving, and it's good to see. It's good when the Broncos are good. Is That's a good thing in the NFL. I mean, I remember, man, there was a time the AFC West was just stacked, man. Like, think about the Broncos. You think about old Chiefs teams. You think about old Raiders teams. You think about even old Chargers teams. Like that was a stacked division at one point in time. And so like it's good that the Broncos are better, but man, if the Bills would have played the Bengals, it would have been a way tougher matchup for the Bills than what they got from the Broncos. So shout out to Joe Burrow, man, because you had a lot of teams scared out there. All right, then we have Baltimore and Pittsburgh. Not much to say about this game. The Steelers continued their slide. Like they lost a bunch of games heading into the playoffs. They were hot and have cooled down even faster. Mike Tomlin is, I mean, arguably on the hot seat. I think he kind of controls his own destiny if he wants to come back. He has his own destiny. He controls his own destiny as opposed if when it comes to whether he wants to play for another team. So I think he's still in I think he signed a 3-year extension last year. So he still has 2 years left on his contract. But I'm tired of I ain't gonna hold you, man. Like he's a black coach, and I like that we have a black coach out there that has the longevity that he has in terms of a coaching tenure. But like we gotta stop praising that mediocrity, man. Tomlin hasn't done anything with this franchise in a long time. This is their like fifth straight like one and done appearance in the playoffs. So even years where he's had like really good rosters and really good offenses, they haven't done anything with those teams. So I think it would kind of bode well if the Steelers went in a different direction. I think they need an infusion of something different, right? And you know they've been really analyzing Mike Tomlin. Mike Tomlin, man, as long he's been the coach of the Steelers for like 18 years, he has no coaching tree. Like there's no tree of coaches that come from Mike Tomlin that's like, oh, he did this, he did this, he did this. Like he hasn't taught anybody to be great. Um and just yeah, man, with that just him being a defensive minded coach is very like the Steelers are okay with beating teams with field goals. You know, like Chris Boswell was their best player this year, you know, arguably. So it's like it's just not good, man. It's not good. It's not a good. You can't. It's not championship winning football. So they got to figure some things out. Other than that, off the Steelers, Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry are a duo that we always wanted but never knew that we needed, man. So these two went to work. Derrick Henry was running through holes untouched, you know, or barely touched, and he was just running for touchdowns, man. Like had another monster game. Uh, Again, they kind of cruised through. You know, Steelers did score a couple touchdowns, you know, in the midst of the game, but like the Baltimore Ravens were not afraid of them, and they were not scathed by them in any way. Then we got last game, or which was the first game to start off the wild card playoffs, was the Texans and Chargers, and I had the Chargers winning this game. Harbaugh, man, you know, John Harbaugh, um, Jim Harbaugh. Um, he did his thing. I mean, a good turnaround season for the Chargers. You know, again, I said that they used to be a stacked division, and the fact that you know, they put three teams in to the playoffs. You know, they put the Broncos, they put the Chiefs, and the Chargers. So the AFC West is the future is bright. You know what I mean? They got, you know, strong coaches. They got a lot of strong coaches in there. The Raiders are the only dumpster fire, the only team that doesn't really matter in that division. But yeah, man, it wasn't enough though. It wasn't enough. Herbert is still gonna get though that criticism that he's not like a big game quarterback. He has to win a playoff game. They have to do better in these closer matchups. But I think after 1 year, you know, I think Harbaugh did a really good job. I think there's going to be some overhaul there. The Texans, though, the Texans, the winners of that game, they decided to wake up. The Texans started off really strong, and then they kind of cooled down, and it became very mediocre for a long stretch of the season. But they stepped up, and they got the toughest matchup, probably arguably the toughest matchup, in the next round. So yeah, wild card playoffs was interesting, but arguably we could say it wasn't that entertaining because there was only one game that was truly competitive. The Packers game was close for the most part. Like it was close most of the game in terms of score. In terms of score, like losing 22-10 is not 12 points. That's less than two touchdowns. That's not the and one of them, you know, and basically six of their point, you know, a lot of their points came from field goals. I mean, they kicked a lot of field goals in that game. So I think they, you know, like maybe 9 points worth of field goals. But either way, it wasn't a masterful performance. Yeah, I think if you take away the field goals, I think it's a 13-10 game. So yeah, and even so, yeah, they even kicked field goals to get to that point. So it was competitive for most of the game. It was clear though that the Eagles had control, but you know, hopefully in this next round we get a lot of closer games, and that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna preview the next round because the wild card round was not that eventful. Um, First matchup we're gonna talk about is going into this division round is the Bills and Ravens. Man, this is a heavyweight matchup, man. This is a battle of the two top MVP candidates. Um, if it's not a close game, this is what I'm gonna say. If this is not a close game at all, like if there's a blowout on either side, people are gonna feel like whoever loses the game shouldn't get the MVP, despite the vote being done already. Like they already voted for the MVP. Like it's a regular season award. But if somebody gets blown out and one of the other gets the MVP award, we're gonna feel like it's not deserved. Like for example, if the Ravens blow out the Bills and Josh Allen still wins the MVP, people are gonna feel like, oh, he didn't deserve that. He didn't deserve that. Or vice versa. If the Bills blow out the Ravens, people are gonna feel like, man, Lamar wins the MVP for the third time. They're gonna be like, man, no, that was what are they doing? They're doing anything right now. Um, so I'm interested to see that. This is actually a rematch from week 4. And the reason why I kept saying blowout, 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 right? Because in the first game, the Ravens won 35-10. Derrick Henry had 199 yards rushing. The team had 271 yards rushing. So the Ravens were just beating them up. The Bills have since found their groove. And the Bills, though, they're tough too. The Bills have big wins this season under their belt. They beat the Chiefs, the only team, one of the only teams to beat the Chiefs, right? And then they beat because obviously the last game of the season, the Broncos beat them, but did they really beat the Chiefs? You know what I'm saying? But yeah, really the only team that beat the Chiefs, and the Bills beat the Lions. The Bills beat the Lions. Um, then they had a barn burner with the Rams. It was a tough loss. They lost by like 2 points, but it was both teams had over 40 points. So the Bills, they're a dangerous team for sure. Josh Allen is having an MVP season, but so is Lamar. It's going to come down to the trenches, though. It's going to come down to who is the tougher team, who can run the ball, who can kind of set the line of scrimmage and establish dominance on the line of scrimmage. Bills have a defense that goes on and off, and they don't always show up. They don't always show up. The Bills have so many games where they've given up 30 points. The Ravens defense, though, is a lot more solid. They've only given up 30 points 3 times, and twice were to the Bengals. So again, shout out to Joe Burrow. This is the Joe Burrow effect. So yeah, I mean, um, the Ravens defense is a lot more solid, and with them having, I think the Bills have a good running game, but the Ravens running game is a different level. It's a different level good. I got the Ravens winning. I'm gonna say in a tough fought game, I say 24-20, 24-20 Ravens, right? But it's gonna be determined by the running game is gonna determine who wins this. And I won't be surprised if the Ravens win by more points, but I say 24-20, and the Bills do have a chance. The Bills need a win. They need a big win though. Josh Allen needs a big win, especially if he is gonna win the MVP. I mean, he's gonna look like a pretender if he don't get it done. All right. Then the other AFC matchup is we got the Chiefs and the Texans. The Chiefs are very well rested now, right? They've had a lot of time off. But will that bode well for them? We've seen in the past where having that first round bye is not always a good thing. Um, but since some of their best pieces are veterans, I would say that it probably that rest is a good thing. But there will be a rust factor to consider. Like we gotta consider if they can snap off the rust, and the fact that the Chiefs have squeaked by so many teams this year. Can they get a win over the Texans? The Texans defense, um, they stepped up in a big way, and they're trying to erase this stigma that they cannot win in the divisional round. I'm gonna go out on a limb though. I'm gonna go out on a limb here. Let's see, because Chiefs defense ain't great, whatever. So I'm gonna go out on a limb. I'm gonna say 31 Texans. I'm a root for the Texans because I would like to see some new blood in the Super Bowl. So I'm gonna go Texans 31-23. 31-23. Yeah. So they're gonna win by a touchdown in a two-point conversion, 8 points. So yep, 31-23 Texans. I think their defense, I think they're gonna play inspired. I think they're gonna want to get this off, this monkey off their back, so to speak, that they can't win in the divisional round. It'll be their first Super Bowl appearance, and it'll be good, man. It's good for the NFL. So I again, I'm going on a limb there and predict that win. Then we got NFC side. We got the Lions versus the Commanders. Lions, um, and by the way, although I am a Packer fan, I'm rooting for the Lions rest of the way. So the Lions cannot let me down. They're the only NFC North team. Normally, I would not root for my division, but like when you root for your division when they're still in the playoffs, it kind of shows that your division is tough. So I'm all lines now. This is a battle between two strong coaches that have changed the culture of their franchises in a short amount of time. So just in one season, the Commanders 12, go from like 3 or 4 wins to a 12-win team, just like that. Like and they found a quarterback that they need. So I do have confidence on them on the horizon. I don't, Jaden Daniels got the Bucks the last round, who are an okay team, but this is gonna be his toughest test. Trying to beat the Lions and that defense, despite all their injuries. Despite all their injuries, they are truly a next man up type of franchise, and they still have a lot of dangerous players on defense that can make crazy plays. So, one of the things that people have cited is that the Commanders have not beaten any good teams other than the Eagles. So they beat the Eagles, and I guess now they beat the Buccaneers, who are a playoff team. But most of their season they did not, and they beat the Eagles without Jalen Hurts. So most of the season they beat the teams that like are mediocre or like teams that they should beat, but they really haven't beaten anybody. So it's gonna be interesting. It's gonna be I think it's gonna be a big win though, or steady or solid win for the Lions though. I predict it's gonna be 28-17, 28-17 Lions. I think the Lions. I think they need that rest to get some guys healthy again. I think Dan Campbell is not gonna be playing around with them. I think he's gonna be super aggressive on this team. But I don't know if I don't think the Commanders have enough playmakers to make that much noise against the Lions. So 28-17, and that's being nice. It's really probably 28-14 game, to be honest with you. That's what I got. And then the last NFC game, we got the Eagles and the Rams. And I think the Eagles have a much easier matchup going against the Rams as opposed to going against who if the Packers would have won, the Packers would have won, we'd have been, the Packers would have played the Lions, then they would be playing the Commanders. I think the Rams are a tougher team than the Commanders currently. Uh, oh no. Well, they would have played. No, if the Vikings, yeah, the Vikings would have won. Yeah, so yeah. So if we would have beat the, yeah, if we would have beat the Lions, then the Eagles wouldn't have been in the playoffs. Um, yeah, then it would have been. But however, if the Vikings would have beat the Rams, I think the Vikings would definitely give the Eagles a tougher matchup, a tougher game. Since the Eagles are playing the Rams, I think they got their work cut out for them a little bit. The Rams do have some surprise weapons. They do have some people that are pretty good. The Eagles will have to play better though than they did in the last round. They do get a mid Rams team that kind of showed out though in the last half of the season. The Rams beat the Bills this year, so the Rams they have some big wins under their belts, right? They beat the Vikings. They beat the Vikings twice. The Rams beat the Vikings twice this season. They beat the Bills. They are a really tough team. They won their division, but I don't think they have again on offense. They have Nakua and they got Kyron Williams, but other than that, Cooper Cup is a shell of himself. I don't think they're not going to get 9 sacks on the Eagles defensive line. There's no way they get 9 sacks on Jalen Hurts. I think at the Eagles, I think the Eagles, even though they have a great running game and they should rely on their running game, they need to get the passing going, but not at the expense of running the ball. They need to get guys like AJ Brown involved this game. They need to get Devontae Smith involved. Goddard is back. They need to get Goddard involved because it's gonna bode well for them later on in the playoffs if they were to make the Super Bowl, if they are to make the NFC Championship game. They're gonna need their star players, their pass catchers to be in it, right? They're gonna need them to be fully involved and wanting to get better and just like I said, just thrive and succeed, right? I got the Eagles winning. I don't think the Rams can. I don't think the Rams can put up that much points, man. Eagles can put up points, man. I got 24-10. 24-10. Yeah, I got them beating the Rams pretty handily there. So I guess when we look at that, it's only gonna be like one or two competitive games. Again, I do have an upset with the Texans. I think the Texans are gonna upset them. I got the Ravens winning a close game. But on the NFC side, I got two relative blowouts. I think the Lions are gonna handle the Commanders, and I think the Eagles are gonna handle the Rams. So we'll see. We'll see. What do you think though? What do you think? What are your predictions? What do you think I got wrong here? Um, we're gonna wrap this up. Next week. We'll talk about. Maybe we'll get into the Packers a little bit more and talk about like what they need in terms of, improving their team. We'll have less games if we cover the NFC. If we cover the divisional round, we'll have less games to kind of cover. So we'll be able to cover a little bit more content. Next week is also we have our inauguration day, so it's gonna be a lot of news flowing from that type of stuff. So definitely looking forward to that for the next episode. But if you're still here, if you're still watching with us, I need you to hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, share the content, leave a comment below. But this is your boy Low Steph. This is episode 177 of the 280 Plus podcast, y'all, and I'm out. Peace. I'm out of here.